everybody, and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Monday afternoon. And Manchester United, well, Goldbridge said it on the morning show, are they in crisis? As more news comes out around cost cutting, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, is it ruthless or is it being cheap? And is this the best thing to do at Manchester United? Rather than focusing on staff cuts and focusing on redundancies and focusing on cutbacks within the staff at Manchester United, why don't we focus on getting some of the players on huge wages that are underperforming out of the club? Got some more news, some exclusive news coming out on the United Stand about Sir Jim Ratcliffe getting even more ruthless with staff cuts, and a lot of Manchester United staff feeling very disappointed by this. I also want to have my say on the whole Dan Ashworth thing. Honestly, when I woke up on Sunday morning and I seen that Dan Ashworth was leaving Manchester United, I thought, you know when like in the films where you have to slap yourself because you think you're still dreaming? I thought, no way on earth Manchester United are getting rid of the sporting director they spent months trying to go and get 5 months in. But that is exactly what we've done. I want to give my opinion on that because it is a huge news story for Manchester United. Osimhen to Manchester United, a lot of people thought it was a pipe dream. It's looking more and more realistic. £62 million Manchester United could pay to get Osimhen out, get him from Galatasaray. Obviously, he's going to leave Napoli, get him to Manchester United. That could be a striker that Manchester United could viably go for, which in the past, everyone's thought it's going to be like £100 million deal. They've always wanted Osimhen, but they thought it was a no-go. Now, for the break clause at £62 million, it looks like a viable option for Manchester United, an experienced striker. Would you want to do that or wait for Gyökeres? Jonathan David, available on a free in the summer. Manchester United could potentially target him for a cheaper alternative. But should Manchester United stay away from the cheaper alternatives? Because we've done that in the past and it's not always worked out. You end up getting someone in a couple years down the line, you need to get rid of them and you're going to end up paying loads more money anyway to get the right profile and get the right player in. Get your thoughts in down below, get your comments in, any polls you want up, let me know. But happy Monday, everybody. Let's get in with the first bit of news, and it's coming from Sam C Reports. And there's been a lot of news coming out around the staff cuts by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Everybody knows about the ticket price rises. I had my say on that at the weekend when we played against Nottingham Forest. I said on the forum, I said on the build-up show, I thought Sir Jim's explanation for the ticket prices being higher was out of touch, and it didn't fool me. I don't know if anybody else would accept that, but personally, by the way, I'm not completely anti-INEOS. There's a lot of things that INEOS have done that I agree with. I'm going to have my say on the Dan Ashworth stuff in a second, because even though it is embarrassing, if it's not working, I do agree with it in some aspects, and I'm going to talk about that. But I really don't agree with the ticket prices, and I thought the explanation was basically trying to fob United fans off, and you could come back with it with multiple different factors. I said it on the weekend. One, we're not in London. Two, the average price of a house near where Fulham is, Craven Cottage, is probably around 1 million. In around where Old Trafford is, about 300,000, maybe a little bit less than that even. So it's a completely different standard of living and completely different price range. And plus you can fit 73,000 into Old Trafford. Craven Cottage is nowhere near that attendance, and it's just completely different, and it's a different culture at both the clubs. I thought that explanation was out of touch. But also, I have been a little bit frustrated, I'm going to be honest, with a lot of the cuts that have been going on behind the scenes. Look, I don't work at Manchester United, so it doesn't personally affect me, but obviously it's always sad when regular hard-working people are losing their jobs. And it's even sadder when a lot of them people work very hard. They're the types of people that this club is built upon, and there's players on massively long contracts, on massively high wages, underperforming week in, week out. Now, we already know that when the FA Cup final was on last year, they stopped the staff going down, and there was massive staff cuts there. And Bruno Fernandes, the captain of Manchester United, offered to pay to cover it because he felt bad about it. Bruno Fernandes, whatever anyone has to say about him as a player, I think he's a very good player, but whatever you have to say about him as a player, I know for a fact, because I speak to people at Manchester United and people behind the scenes, he's an incredibly good person. And that's why he's captain of Manchester United. He's an incredibly good person. He offered to put his hand in his pocket and pay for everyone to go down to watch the FA Cup final, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe cut that. Ticket prices are going up. A lot of redundancies are happening. And I know what people will say. Sir Ratcliffe and INEOS weren't in charge when Manchester United gave out all of these contracts and gave out all these high wages. And I get that. And I get that you've got to earn money back somewhere. I get that the club's in debt. But I think the main focus, and maybe this is why Dan Ashworth's gone, is to remove the deadwood at the club that are on ridiculously high wages, and are not performing anywhere near them wages. That's what the first part of call should be. And maybe that's why Dan Ashworth's gone, because he didn't manage to do that in the summer. And you've got players like Casemiro on 300 odd grand a week that aren't getting any game time under Ruben Amorim. I mean, Christian Eriksen's on around 200 grand a week, I think. He's not getting any game time under Ruben Amorim. So maybe that was part of the thinking of it. But there's been more staff cuts, and that's why it's in the title. And I'll have my opinion on it in a second, but this is coming in from Sam C Reports. He's put a little report together, and he said that Manchester United staff were left disappointed recently after learning the news that they wouldn't be having a funded Christmas party this year. A source within told the United Stand that this is the first time in years that the club won't be funding the Christmas do. Traditionally held at Old Trafford, the event has also been hosted at venues like the Cricket Ground and the GMEX in the past, bringing together staff from across the organisation. The mood at Manchester United is already being described as sour within the recent news that sporting director Dan Ashworth has left the club, despite only being in place for a handful of months. Manchester United club sources say that they have been rapidly working on developing a new team and structure, and it looks as though Dan's vision didn't align with the other senior Manchester United board members. At this time of year, where everything is meant to be happy and joyful, at Manchester United, it is currently not. All right, it's not going to be happy behind the scenes because there's been a lot of staff redundancies and there's been a lot of cutbacks, and you know, there's no more working from home than working in the office. By the way, working in the office and not working from home, I can get behind that. I can get behind some hard work. Do not get me wrong. I think if you're being paid by an organisation, you're being paid well and you've got that job. Like, if they want to put standards in place to be working at the office and, up the workload to a reasonable amount, I think that's absolutely fine. But cutting the staff Christmas party at Manchester United, cutting the staff Christmas party, I mean, that is beyond cheap. That is beyond cheap. Beyond cheap. Okay, I get it. We're trying to cut costs. We're in a lot of debt. But that's what we do. Cut the staff Christmas party. If I'm a staff member at Manchester United that's been working hard all year, I've seen there's been loads of redundancies, loads of cutbacks. I'm seeing players stroll into Carrington in Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and then putting in an absolute half-arsed performance at the weekend. And then I'm working, I'm grafting every single day, and they decide to cut the staff Christmas party. That would really wind me up. And I honestly don't agree with it. I'm going to be honest. I do not agree with it. And the reason I don't agree with it is because it's crazy that a club of that magnitude, a club like Manchester United, the biggest club in England, one of the biggest clubs in the world, is now cutting a Christmas party with staff members that work all year round. And these staff members aren't on hundreds of £1,000s a week. They'll be on regular wages. And I don't think it's a way that you should treat your staff if you want to get the best out of them as well. I actually tweeted about it before, and I'm going to read out my tweet because it's, we need to address the real issues at Manchester United, and how much money realistically is cutting a staff Christmas party that's going to put a smile on a lot of them staff members' faces. How much is that actually going to achieve you? How much money is that actually going to save you? It's like going round to your grandparents' house and they've, sellotape the light switches up because they're trying to save on the electric bill. It's like, it's just tight. In my opinion, it's tight. So I put out before, I said, cancelling the staff Christmas party is so poor if that's actually true. And it looks like there is some truth in this. We're paying bang average players hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, yet we draw the line at a Christmas party to reward hard-working staff for their contributions across the year. If you want to get the best out of your staff, things like this go a long way. And I'm all for that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert in running a company, I'm not an expert on management, but I know a little bit about it. My dad works in management and he works with people, and stuff like that, it really does go a long way, especially if you want to get the best out of your staff. If you treat your staff members well, they are likely to want to work harder for you. They are likely to want to do more for you. If you don't treat your staff well, they're probably not going to put in the extra mile. They're probably not going to work it 80 to 100%. They're probably going to drop off a little bit because they'll probably think, why should I give my all for you if you're not treating me in the right way? And obviously it's a privilege to work at Manchester United, and you know, a lot of the people there will very much enjoy the jobs and be very happy within the jobs. But I can understand if you're a regular staff member at Manchester United and you're putting in all of these hours, you're working incredibly hard. And I know a lot of people that do work at Manchester United, they work very hard behind the scenes, working all hours. And your staff parties get cut, your privileges get cut. But players who are on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week coming to train for a few hours a day and put in poor performances at the weekend, they continue getting paid, and it would be frustrating to me as well if I was in that position. It's like the Scrooge, isn't it, at this point in time? I mean, keep getting your super chats in. Let me know your thoughts. Also, around the mood at Manchester United being low, it'll be low because we're losing. It'll be low because things aren't going right on the pitch. Dan Ashworth leaving 5 months in, that doesn't really give people behind the scenes that much confidence in INEOS, I would imagine. I mean, imagine if you working at a company and the sporting director, who they spent months and months trying to get out of Newcastle, paid a big fee. It wasn't absolutely massive, but they paid a big fee for a sporting director to get him out of Newcastle. He's in for, 4 or 5 months, and then he's gone. And he was the guy that INEOS was, that was the vision. We're getting him in to run the club with Omar Barada, with Jason Wilcox. He was a big key figure behind the scenes, and he's already gone after you wanted him for months and months. Behind the scenes, you'd be like, well, do they really know what they're doing? Do they really know what direction they're doing? Is there really a plan? Or is it, are we switching up? We think this is right. Oh, now actually it's not. We've just had a massive bust up after Nottingham Forest, and now, you know what, Dan Ashworth's going, and we'll pivot and we'll go in a different direction. Have they really got that long-term vision? Have they really got a plan? And I think it would put a little bit of caution into people at Manchester United. You know what, have they actually got what it takes to get this club back? Do they actually know what they're doing? Because even for me, and I'm a fan, I was so behind, this best in class, this structure behind the scenes. Omar Barada I thought was a brilliant appointment, and I still do. Jason Wilcox, very well thought of. Dan Ashworth, I was behind that, I'm not going to lie. I thought, we had a great reputation at Brighton, went to Newcastle. I thought he did a decent job at Newcastle. I know some of the signings were already there before he came in, but he had a very good reputation. I was behind that. But then all of a sudden, 5 months in, it's like, we're getting rid of him. It does make you think, did you do the due diligence? Are we on the right path? Have they just had a massive argument after the Nottingham Forest game in that emergency meeting, and that's how it's blown up? We don't know. It's purely speculation. I've got a few more things I want to say on the Dan Ashworth stuff, but I'll get your super chats in first. Dan Edie says, Beth, Openda is the perfect striker for Ruben Amorim. I do really like Openda. I think that's a really good shout. Patrick Lynch says the area around Old Trafford is being touted for regeneration. If that is the case, then it shows ordinary fans can't afford ticket hikes. Fans would be priced out. Kiel Robinson says sell Rashford and Casemiro for 20 million to get them off the books. I mean, you're definitely not going to get a fee for Casemiro. 100% won't get a fee for him. I mean, you'd be lucky if someone would pay his wage, to be honest with you. And with Rashford, I think you could get a fee. It's just the wage that'd be a problem at this moment in time, especially with the performances that he's putting in. So it would be tough, but it would be tough. But there is movement. There is things you'd be able to do. So we'll have to see how it progresses. But something's got to give. Something has got to give. That squad cannot keep performing at the level it's performing at, on the wages that it's on, and nothing change. something is going to have to give because it's not going to be the manager. We are sticking with Ruben Amorim. We know he's a good coach. We are sticking with him. If he doesn't get the performances out of the players, and maybe he has gone behind the scenes and said to them, look, I've not got anything near what is the quality to be a Manchester United squad. I mean, he's come out and said it in press conferences, basically. He's described this squad as not being good enough multiple times in a nice way. He said it's an elite club, but not an elite team. Something's got to give, and we pay elite wages. It's not an elite team, but we pay elite wages. So I think something's going to have to happen in terms of getting rid of players, and it's going to have to happen in the summer. Maybe that's why Dan Ashworth's gone, because they need to be more ruthless in terms of outgoings, and there's going to have to be some big names that leave Manchester United in the summer. We'll have to wait and see. But on the Dan Ashworth stuff, I wanted to bring this in as well. I know a lot of people like he deserved to be sacked if he wanted Southgate, and he wanted, you know, all these British managers he was putting to the forefront, and that's what he was pushing, and he wanted Branthwaite, and he wanted this other English player, and if he was behind Xerxes. I just want to say, okay, yeah, he might have wanted Southgate, and we were hearing at the United stand, and we did get slated for it, that Southgate was definitely in meetings and definitely in contention. I mean, I personally heard Southgate was coming from Sir Dave Brailsford. That's what I personally heard. But again, people will say, Beth, you don't have sources, and you have every right to do so. Behind the scenes, I got told multiple times that Sir Dave Brailsford was the one that was pushing for Southgate. That's what I got told. But I never really brought that up because I didn't have it. I'm not Sam C Reports. I'm not Fabrizio Romano. I'm not getting things 100% confirmed from everyone like that. But that's what I personally heard. Dan Ashworth might well have been pushing for Gareth Southgate. He might well have been. He has that connection from him from England. And if that was the case, I don't believe that vision aligns with Manchester United, and it's probably a good thing he's departed the club. But it's very easy, right? It is very easy for when a relationship collapses and something's not gone the way you wanted to. Dan Ashworth's gone. For whatever reason, he's gone. And it was very abrupt, very abrupt. I personally think that there was a big bust-up after the Nottingham Forest game in the emergency meeting, and that's how kind of things came to a head. That is literally just my interpretation, because it came out of nowhere. Literally came out of nowhere, all of a sudden he's gone. And you've spent so much time to go and get him. It didn't make sense to me. It honestly didn't. But it's very easy in that situation to do damage control. It's very easy to leak to... I'm not saying this happened, but it could have happened. It's very easy to leak to the papers and leak to journalists. This is the reason he's gone, and kind of spin it in a way where it was all Dan Ashworth that wanted Southgate. It was all Dan Ashworth that was the reason, the data behind getting Joshua Xerxes. Dan Ashworth's to blame for losing the money on Erik ten Hag. It's very easy to just pin it all on the guy that isn't here anymore. And I don't want Dan Ashworth to turn into a scapegoat, because obviously, you know, if you're INEOS in this situation, it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Let's call a spade a spade. It's embarrassing spending all that time, spending all that money to go and get Dan Ashworth as the face of your project, your director of football, to then get rid of him after 5 months. So how do you damage control that? The fans didn't want Southgate. The fans aren't really liking the signing of Joshua Xerxes right now. That's what's going to come out into the press. I don't think we should scapegoat one person. At the end of the day, everybody at INEOS made decisions to keep Erik ten Hag and then to sack Erik ten Hag. Everybody at that club made decisions to make them transfers in the summer, have them outgoings in the summer. Everybody made them decisions. So I don't think you can scapegoat one person, is what I'm trying to say. So as much as I have kind of, you know, give INEOS a little bit of criticism there, and I think, honestly, I think they deserve it. I think they deserve a bit of criticism. I was so excited for INEOS, really excited, and I am still excited, by the way. I do genuinely believe that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has the best interest of Manchester United at heart, and I genuinely believe that they want to win and want to get us to the top. I just don't think they've gone about it in the best way so far. I think they are learning on the job. I really do. But what I will say in their defence, in INEOS's defence and Sir Jim Ratcliffe's defence, is that it takes confidence to hold your hands up and say, we got this decision wrong. Because it was embarrassing, the news coming out about Dan Ashworth. They could have easily just kept with it to save face. I would so much rather we have the confidence to be like, okay, this isn't working. This isn't what we thought we were getting with Dan Ashworth. We're going to make the ruthless decision to get rid. You know, it's going to be embarrassing. People are going to question us, but this is the right thing to do. I would so much rather us actually have the confidence to do that. And if they can do it to somebody who they spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to get out of Newcastle, they can do it to anyone. And it gives me a bit more hope that they are going to start getting ruthless with the squad when they can do that, when it gets to the transfer window. And I'm trying to look at it, because I'm glass half full, I'm trying to think to myself, hopefully, they're like, we need someone in charge in the summer who's actually going to get rid of some of these players and going to be able to do that. I don't know if Dan's up to the job. That's what I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping they're like, you know what, Dan actually isn't as good as we thought he was going to be, and he isn't going to be able to be as ruthless and as good as we thought we were getting in a sporting director. We need to get more first teamers in a transfer window. We need to get more players out on big wages in the transfer window. We need an overhaul, and we don't know if Dan is capable of completing that. So it's better to get rid of him now, because, you know, summer is, even though summer's a long time away, we are at Christmas, that'll be, you know, you start planning for the summer transfer window in January. Even now there'll be conversations going on about it. So we need everything in place and we need things to be right. So I would so much rather than be like, you know what, yeah, we actually are going to make this decision, as embarrassing it is, to get rid of him, because we need better. I'm hoping that is the case. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat as well. We've got someone saying, to me, it's more concerning how Ashworth's decision-making on the new manager decision was. It shows a boys' club mentality. If it was Dan Ashworth that was pushing for Southgate, which it does kind of make sense because of obviously the English connection and everything like that. And thank God, you know, we didn't go down that route. And I saw Mark speaking about this on the morning show, so I won't go into it too deeply, because he's already had his say on this, and I agree with him. You know, maybe Manchester United is just too big for Dan Ashworth. Maybe that is the case. You know, we're Manchester United. We're Manchester United. We're not Brentford or Brighton. We're Manchester United. And I have respect for them two clubs. I enjoy watching them. You know, Southgate was never, ever going to be an option for us. So maybe there was a lot of realisation there that actually, you know what, he's not going to be our guy. And if that was the case, I applaud INEOS for making the decision to get rid of him. The only thing I would say is, realistically, we never should have got him in the first place. We should have done our due diligence properly, and it does look like they are learning on the job. There is a lot of question marks over INEOS. There is a lot of question marks. Someone sent me this earlier, and I thought it was a bit damning, to be honest with you. And it was this. It was INEOS's first 10 months at Manchester United, extend Erik ten Hag's contract and then sack him, costing millions. That's one that I actually low-key will kind of allow, because I also wanted to keep Erik ten Hag after the FA Cup final. So I can understand why they did that. The fans were massively backing to keep Ten Hag. I felt like we always had to give him a chance, or else there would have been a what-if situation. Yeah, it did cost millions, and that is unfortunate, but I don't really hold that against them too highly. Appoint Ashworth and sack him, costing millions. That one, again, like I said, I would rather us sack him than go along with it if it was wrong, but they never should have got him in the first place. They should have been smarter. They should have done their due diligence. Unprecedented ticket price rise. Obviously, the ticket price is going up, and then the explanation was out of touch. Massively in disagreement with that one. I can get on board with that. Mass redundancies, again, I understand, you know, cutbacks had to be made, and I understand, you know, making a more efficient, more streamlined working environment at the club, but I don't think certain staff members should have been targeted before players and the squad that are on hundreds of thousands a week. In terms of some things will have needed to be done, but I do think it's gone a little bit extreme at the club, especially with this Christmas party thing happening. I completely don't agree with that. And then the last bit was overseeing worst on-field results since the 1980s, 28 league games, 35 points taken from the takeover. I mean, it feels like every single year it's the worst ever start to the season, doesn't it? But it's not a great look for INEOS coming into Manchester United. Hopefully, it's one of them situations where it gets worse before it gets better. And I look at Chelsea, and Todd Bowley had a right old time of it, didn't he, when he came in? And we're all laughing at Chelsea. They spent ridiculous amounts. It looked like they were getting nowhere. But at the end of the day, now they're second in the league and they're potentially in a title race. They finally look like they've got it right. But then also, you know, you can have a blindfold on and keep chucking a dart. At one point, it's going to hit bullseye. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing it for weeks on end. So they have spent a lot of money to get to that point, but it's frustrating because I want Manchester United to get back and it just feels like we just keep getting further and further away. Kai says, a man signed Xerxes and was told he had to go. Again, Mark spoke about this on the morning show. Xerxes was already in place to come to Manchester United before Dan Ashworth officially started. So again, to me, that comes across as a scapegoating situation. And Joy Wrighton says, hi Beth, we're a laughing stock. Hey, honestly, the amount of people I have messaging me, basically just laughing. And I think I can't say anything back. It's so unfortunate. Keel Robinson says, selling them for cheap offsets their wage demand. Sambo says, a sad week where everyone commented that United is a family, RIP CAF. They cancelled the Christmas party. INEOS don't understand our club. Well, I mean, I know a lot of people are disappointed. I mean, let's move on to the next bit of the show. But that's my little whole take on INEOS at the moment. I think they've got a long way to go to prove to all of us that we are on the right track. I do think they're trying to do the right things in certain aspects, but I don't agree with a lot of what's happened so far. And let's just see where we go. It feels like it can't get worse, doesn't it? Striker situation. Amorim wants a striker. We've spoken about this. We did a poll on one of my afternoon shows last week. Would you prefer Osimhen or would you prefer Gyökeres? It was very close. Victor Osimhen, you could potentially get him out of Galatasaray in January, has a break clause in his contract for £62 million. If anyone wants to pay that to Napoli, any of the 10 clubs that are named in his break clause, and it is thought to be said that Manchester United is one of them 10 clubs. Victor Osimhen used to be valued at over 100 million. There was talks it'd take 120, 130 million to get him out of Napoli. With everything that went on with Napoli, the breakdown in relationship, he ended up going to Galatasaray on deadline day, and he's now on loan at Galatasaray, but there is a break clause in his contract if one of them 10 clubs come in for him for £62 million. Now, for a striker of his quality, and it's 25 years old, and in today's market, that seems like a very good price. Bear in mind, we bought Rasmus Højlund for £72 million. Rasmus Højlund, I actually do believe he has a future at Manchester United, and I believe he has potential. And if, you know, when he gets chances, he does score them. He's got to work on his positioning, he's got to work on his hold-up plays, the amount of touches he's taking. But in terms of a clinical striker, and I think that's the most important thing as a striker, have you got that in front of goal, ice cold finish? Do you put your chances away? And once he gets a chance, he does put them away. So I do think he has a future, and he's got obviously years on him, he's only 21, but in terms of getting an experienced striker in that is ready now, knows where to be in the box, knows how to, you know, get the best out of of making his own opportunities and being that fox in the box, running the channels. Victor Osimhen is experienced and he will come in and be a handful for Premier League centre-backs if you were to go there. And for £62 million, it's probably a good price in terms of a striker in this market. So let me know your thoughts on that, because it's coming in again. It's coming in from an Italian source that Manchester United could be the ones to pay Victor Osimhen's £62 million release clause in the January transfer window. There is a break clause in his loan deal from Galatasaray. The only thing I would say on that is I don't think Manchester United have £62 million to spend in January. I highly doubt we're going to spend £62 million in January. And yeah, I just don't see us paying the money. I don't see wages won't be an issue. He's on 115 grand a week at the minute, so he'd be able to pay the wage and we would increase his wage and we wouldn't have to make it anything silly. So wages wouldn't be a problem. I just don't think we have £62 million to spend, to be honest with you. I just don't. We've already heard we're going to have to sell to buy. I don't think we're going to be able to sell anyone of any significance in January. That's usually done in the summer. Realistically, if you're Manchester United now, with the results that we've had and the point we're at with Ruben Amorim, I think we've wrote off this season. I think we're going to just try and get through to the summer. So even though Osimhen would be a good purchase, and I do think Manchester United need to go for someone like him, whether it be an Osimhen, whether it be Gyökeres, I just don't see us spending the money. I don't. And I also think left wing back is a huge priority. That's my top priority, even before a striker, and I think we need a striker, by the way. We need a left wing back, we need a striker, but I don't see us spending £62 million on anybody. I see it being cheap cheap deals in January if we even do anything, to be honest with you. Prove me wrong, INEOS. You know, maybe in January we go and buy Victor Osimhen and they say, that's why you've been charged 66 quid. That's why we cut back on the Christmas party. I mean, how much money has that Christmas party saved him? I can't get my head around it. But I don't see us doing it. I'm going to be honest. As much as I would like to get him in, and I would be all for that deal, I just don't see us doing it. I think we're at that point where, you know, we're not fighting, I mean, we're definitely not fighting for a title. We're not even fighting for top four, let's be honest. We could be fighting for Europa League, and I hope and pray we do get into the Europa League, because I want at least some European football next year. The only way they do it is they think, you know what, we could win the Europa League. And we get to that point, we could win the Europa League under Ruben Amorim if he gets his team sorted out quite quickly. And, you know, a striker could help us get over the line. That's the only way we could go out and do it. We did it under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We went and got Bruno Fernandes because we needed top four desperately and we were struggling big time. And he had basically barely any midfielders to pick from. I think he had Pereira, McTominay, Matic, and I think, did McTominay get injured? Somebody got injured. Maybe we go and do it through that, but I don't see us doing it. I mean, get in the comments, do you reckon we will? The Bongo Jeff says, our defensive solid. We tied third for least conceded goals. We need attackers and midfielders. I agree with that, apart from the Forest game, where Anana had a meltdown and Martinez was completely off it, and Dallow's been poor for a while. Our defence has been really good. I don't think our defence needs as much investment as our attack and our midfield. I agree with that. I think we need a left-sided centre-back. I think we need a left wing-back. But our attack and our midfield is what needs the most work. I completely agree with that. Gamebred says, it's a sinking ship, Beth, and has been for a decade. It feels that way. You know, sometimes I'm just, you know, I'm driving in the car and I'm having a think, or, you know, when you're in the shower thoughts. And I'm thinking, because I'm always thinking about Manchester United, sadly. And sometimes I think to myself, are we ever going to get better? Is anybody capable of making Manchester United what it was? And I think surely it's not an impossible job, but it just feels like it sometimes, doesn't it? And it's like you're the Titanic going down and you're trying to use like a spade to get the water out, and it just feels like an impossible job, doesn't it? Enjoy writing saying, are you now seeing Bruno for what he is, Beth? No, to be honest with you, I thought he was one of our better players against Forest. I know he gave away the ball for the second goal, and that was a bad mistake, but he got us back into the game with a good goal, and he was the only one that looked like creating anything. When he went off the pitch, we looked worse. I think if we had 11 Brunos, we'd be in a better position. Of course, he needs to be more disciplined. He's not the perfect player, but he's the best we've got. He's the best we've got. He's the least of our worries. Tell you what, improve the rest of the team, and then we can have a conversation about whether we need to improve on Bruno Fernandes. Because that conversation probably will happen at that point, you know. But it's like everybody at your work is failing, but you decide to target your best performer. Let's get everybody else up to that level, and then we can think about improving. Because there always is going to be better. There always is going to be better. But I think targeting Bruno at this moment in time isn't going to help anybody, and it's definitely not going to help Manchester United. That's my opinion. People will disagree with me. But for me, we need to sort out a lot of other positions and a lot of other things at the club before we take a look at Bruno Fernandes. Kai says, Osimhen thrives on space. There's no space in the Premier League. I actually think he would do well in the Premier League. I think he's physical. I think he wins battles aerially. I think he's strong. He's got pace. I think he'd work in the Prem. Let me just have a look if there's any more super chats that I have missed. There is not so far. Oh, last but not least, I wanted to also say, if Manchester United did want to look at a cheaper alternative for a striker, I know we've been going on about this for years, but Jonathan David currently looks like he's on track to be available on a free in the summer. So Manchester United might look in that direction. And I just want to have my thoughts on this right now. I don't watch loads of Ligue 1, so I might be barking up the wrong tree on this one. But I would rather not go for Jonathan David. I'm going to be honest. I think if we went for Jonathan David, it wouldn't be a first choice. It wouldn't be a Man United quality signing. I mean, what is Manchester United quality at this point? But I think it'd be us going for a cheaper deal and actually not going for the player that has the quality to take us to that next level. I do think he's a good player and I think he has good attributes, but there's a reason why no one's really gone there. I think no top club's really gone there and explored it. Maybe you would come in and do really well, but for me, I think we need to be going for a Gyökeres, an Osimhen, someone of that quality. That's where I think we should be going. And at the end of the day, sometimes you pay for what you get. Jonathan David's always been lingering around Manchester United in terms of his name's always been linked to us, but nothing's ever happened with him. Every year it feels like clubs are looking at him and then he never moves. I know he'll be available on a free, so that might spark a lot of clubs' interest in terms of, obviously it's not going to cost you as much as it would have done in previous years. But he's never been a massively high price. He's always been available for a relatively decent fee, but no one's ever gone there. And I personally wouldn't go for him. I remember watching Copa America, and for Canada, I don't think he looked all that. I get you always look better when you've got better players around you, and the Canadian team isn't the strongest, but I don't think he's not someone I'd look at and say, that's who Manchester United need to go and get. Do you know what I mean? If we're really going to get a striker in, you want a serious improvement on what we've already got, and I wouldn't go there just because he's on a free transfer. The free transfers I would be going for is like an Alphonso Davies. That's worth it because he is quality and he will improve. He walks straight into our first team. But it's whether Manchester United can attract a player like that. And this moment in time, you would think probably not. Like my brother said to me this morning, he went, because he always asks me about Man United stuff because I'm doing this all the time. And he said, is there anything in the Jonathan David stuff, Beth? Because obviously I'd love to get him. And I said, we do keep getting linked to him. Apparently he's a huge Manchester United fan and we do keep getting linked to him. So there might be something. And he went, I just don't get why he'd come to us though. Like, why would he come to us? And I said, maybe the wage, maybe the Premier League. And he went, yeah, but we're 13th. And I said, you know what? You're probably right. You're probably right. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's sad. It really is sad at this moment in time. A lot of people saying surely he goes to Madrid, but Madrid haven't been linked to him for a long time. A lot of people in the chat saying go for Wirtz. Wirtz won't be going to Manchester United, and it'll cost a lot of money to get him out. Sean Turner says, but we do need to go for number 10s, and Amorim has identified the midfield as an area for us to improve. I think Bruno will continue playing in the midfield, whether it's in a deep role or whether it is in a 10, but that other position could be up for grabs. I mean, I've always said it's got Mason Mount's name on it, but he needs to prove it. I don't think Garnacho's been playing well enough. Don't think Rashford suits it. I won't bring it up now, but I think there is a conversation in the summer about Rashford. Genuinely, I don't see where he fits. And Joshua Zirkzee won't be good enough, in my opinion, up till now. We need a top-class player in that position. And so far, like I said, this is a trial period for Ruben Amorim. A lot of players will be on trial. You know, Garnacho, Mount, Zirkzee, Rashford, they've got till the end of this year to prove they can grab that number 10 spot. And none of them are selling me at this moment in time. I have high hopes for Mount, but I need to see you perform. I can't just keep thinking every week, yeah, you're going to be that player, you're going to be that player. I need to see it. And I've started to get a bit more ruthless in myself as well because I'm fed up. I'm genuinely so fed up of just averageness. And I do believe Mason Mount has the ability to get that number 10 role. But can you perform? Can you do it week in, week out? Are you going to get injured again? He's still got to prove it. Sean Turner, serious question. I went through the Prem teams and apart from Palace, Leicester, West Ham, Everton and Southampton, our strikers don't get in any other starting 11. I know Mark loves Højlund, but him and Zirkzee are crap. Our forward line, I've said it. I've been saying it since the start of the season. I've got a clip from me from the first fans forum of the season. Our forward line is nowhere near good enough in terms of quality. And I'm not just talking about the strikers, I'm talking about the whole forward line. Honestly, genuinely, it's not. And it's a big reason why we're not scoring enough goals. It's a big reason why we're not good enough. Our forward line is nowhere near at it. It's like, have you seen that drawing of the horse on Twitter where like the left-hand side, the back, like the tail and like the back and its back legs is like it's done by a professional artist, and it gets to the front of the horse and it's like a 2-year-old's drawn it. That's like Manchester United's defence to the attack, in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, I still think our defence isn't 100 out of 100. It, still could do with a little bit of work, but it's done really well so far in the league. I know Onana had a bad game against Forest, but he has done well so far this season. Our defence have done well. Our attack, it's toothless, genuinely toothless. And I'm not just talking about the strikers, by the way. We need to create more for our strikers. When Bruno came off against Forest, there was nothing in that team. Nothing. No creativity, nothing. And the strikers have been feeding off scraps. They have been. The forward line, and I'm not just talking about the strikers, I'm talking about the number 10s as well, the creativity massively needs to improve. Massively. I've said it before. In that front line, I think there's one player good enough to start for Manchester United at this current moment in time for a team that is going to be competing. One player, and that's Ahmad, and he's playing at wing back. He's playing at wing back, and he's the one player that I think is good enough to start for a team that's competing around the top 4. The rest of them, no. Garnacho, great talent, but should be coming off the bench. Højlund, great talent, but should be rotating. And, coming off the bench and rotating and playing them games, like the Bodo Glimt game, like the Everton game, like the Forest at home game. Like, I really do honestly think Højlund's got potential, but I don't think he's ready to be every single game of the season, and it's unfair to put that on him. Xerxes, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, where he fits. Rashford, not been good enough for me. I'm sorry, 2 goals against Everton don't cut it for the amount that we've paying him and the amount of mistakes and poor performances I've seen. So, honestly, it's the forward line needs work, and the creativity in that team needs work as well. Last but not least, I wanted to bring in this. Ahmad's been, I think he did an interview, but I picked out this quote, and it was on what Bruno Fernandes told him after the 4-1 nil against Everton, because they were videoed having quite a long discussion at the end of the game. And Bruno Fernandes took him to one side, and this is what Ahmad said he told him. He told me some things to improve during the game and asked me to be more focused towards the end of the game because that's when you see champions. And again, I love this from Bruno because Ahmad was man of the match. He was fantastic. But Bruno Fernandes, and as people can criticise him all day long, and he's not perfect, but he leads that team. He's constantly leading that team on the pitch, and he is a captain. He is a captain. He should probably take his own advice sometimes, because I think where Bruno sometimes falls down is when we go behind in games. He can be playing well, and if we go behind, he gets reckless and he gets impatient, and his game just starts suffering because of it, and he's trying to do everything and he's losing his head. And he needs to probably take his own advice in this situation. I know we were winning against Everton, but I'd say for Bruno, when we're losing, sometimes his game becomes a lot more erratic and he loses himself because he's frustrated. But he is a leader and he is a captain. And we've seen that over and over again. And for people saying, we need to improve on Bruno, Okay, like I said before, we might do eventually. But for now, he's the best player in our team, if not one of the best players. And he's got the leadership. We have such a lack of leadership in that team. Such a lack of leadership. And you've seen it when he came off against Forest. He was knackered. He probably does need to get subbed more in games. But when he came off, we had no leadership, we had no direction, and we were just floating in the game, barely created anything. Anyway, that's my take on it. But everyone will have a different opinion. I know Ricky disagrees with me on Bruno, but we also agree on other things. It's one of them divisive subjects in the fan base, but I'm just telling you what I think on my show. But look, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. I feel like I got a lot off my chest on that 2 p.m. Had a lot of built-up frustration this morning. Obviously not had my time to talk on the Dan Ashworth stuff until now. Wanted to talk about INEOS because it's a big, big topic in the Manchester United fan base at this moment in time. I'm just hoping Ruben Amorim can get a performance midweek. Europa League game. It's a huge, huge game because Manchester United have to win. The Europa League is our best chance of Champions League football, and you'd want Amorim to get far in that competition. This team needs to start performing for him. By the way, I do not put any blame onto Amorim. None. I am fully behind that manager. Whatever he wants to do, I am there. I am applauding it. Whatever Amorim wants to do, I am getting behind. Because this team, it has zero credit in the bank with me. Genuinely. It's underperformed for Ten Hag, and they're underperforming for Amorim. Amorim, do what needs to be done. I'm behind him. I know we've been losing games. I know his point ratio isn't good since he came in. But you know what? He's figuring out what players can go on this journey with him, and he's figuring out what players can't, and he's figuring out where he needs to improve this team. Hopefully we can get a result midweek. We're actually going over there, flying into Prague tomorrow, so we will be at the press conference for Ruben Amorim and the player, and we will be reporting from the Czech Republic, so stay tuned for all of that content on the United stand. I would say I'm excited, and I am excited. I'm always excited to go and follow Manchester United, but the mood at the moment with Manchester United does feel quite low, but hopefully Ruben Amorim will be back in good spirits, feeling more positive, and we probably are going to see some more rotation. And let's hope this team, we've just got to hope this team can start performing. And Ruben Amorim figures out his better team and what players he can trust more and more quickly. I assume there will be rotation because we have got the Manchester derby at the weekend, and that's another massive game away. But let's just see what happens. I'm hoping for a Manchester United win. I'm just hoping that something's going to click. What I want to see, the thing is, obviously I want to win in the Europa League because I think it's massive. I generally think it's massive for Manchester United in terms of European football. And it's a cup competition, and it'd be huge for us to win that this year, especially Ruben Amorim in his first season. But the main thing I'm looking for is performances. That's what I'm looking for, performances, improved performances. So let's see what happens midweek. But look, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit a like on that video if you haven't already. Enjoy writing. Safe journey, Beth. Thank you very much for your super chat. Appreciate all of you in the comments as well. Seeing all your comments flying in. Have a lovely week. Make sure you have a positive week. Get out there. And yeah, smash this week, everyone. I will see you on the next one.